Welcome to Charts Today. It's Tuesday, the 16th of June, and this is the 1 minute chart of SpaceX with all the price targets on. And you can see here that each buying thrust has generated a new price target. So really quite key, and there's a target pointing all the way to $200. It will be interesting to see if we break that level today. Looking at all the targets, that's the history that we've got. And of course, this history is building. If we look at the 60-minute chart, we're going to get a picture building as we go. But for now, we don't have much data other than that 1 minute chart. So really quite interesting to watch. And I've covered that this morning on TradingView as well. You can follow me on TradingView. It's David_Linton. You can get the targets on TradingView as well. And you can watch my sessions there each day as well. I'll put the link in today's morning call. So looking back at updater, we're seeing here dollar index, really long, slow consolidation phase. Can we break to a new high? This is going to be the question. We've talked about the yen and the intervention that we're seeing there. This 160 level quite key. And sterling, we're just waiting again. Lots depending on that break of the dollar. So there's a sterling dollar rate. We could go either way. Looking at Bitcoin, still pretty bearish. The weekly chart of Bitcoin is really bearish. Below the cloud, head and shoulders pattern potentially. That would project us a lot lower. So we are seeing bearish on the weekly, bearish on the daily. The 60-minute has been looking a bit stronger, but the trend is counter trend, and so we do need to be just aware of that. We saw US markets up sharply yesterday. This is the Nasdaq nudging to a new high. That's the short-term chart. Looking at the daily chart, we are close to making a new high there. So, and a very big upside target if we can do that. The S&P future also quite close to a new high. And if we look at the chart, we've got to get just a little bit higher. We've got to watch out for a lower high, lower low scenario. For sure, but that's quite interesting. And also, we did see the Dow actually breaking to new highs yesterday. So the Dow Jones Index, this is the future, but the actual index did break to a new high. And see that on the weekly and on the daily. And we've activated a new upside target. We will look at the Dow 30 bellwethers shortly, but it's interesting that the large caps in the US are really driving the market forward, so that's quite key. Bond markets are looking fairly settled at the moment. So coming back to indices, we've got basically the UK market looking very flat compared to the US, and the DAX looking even flatter. Again, this is looking like the dollar, just a really long year-long consolidation, so that's quite key. We did see big rises in the CAC Quarante, but again, relatively sideways. Japan had a very strong performance day before yesterday, but overnight we've not managed to make a new high there. The Sensex in India up 0.5%, but realistically, it's a very weak-looking chart on the daily, and the Aussie market also just waiting to see if we can break higher. So it's all about the US at the moment. Now, crude oil is really very interesting. We're seeing Brent crude below that $83 level, back into new downside territory. WTI also now downside targets into bearish territory, waiting for a move below $80 back into the 70s. Don't be surprised to see what was resistance becoming support. We've already put our morning call out this morning, and if we look at the 60-minute chart, you can see a plethora of downside targets there. Sugar we talked about yesterday, still looking very bearish on that 60-minute chart. The daily chart, waiting to see which target we activate. You'd favor the downside below the cloud there. And we're seeing grains weaker as well. Gold is looking like it may be finding some support at around 4,000. It is a pretty bearish pattern. The downside target not quite reached yet. The 60-minute chart, we've recovered back above the cloud, but no clear upside targets, no buying thrust generating those targets. Silver, similar picture here. We are seeing lots of downside targets, bearish below the cloud. The 60-minute chart we did have some upside targets which have been met, but precious metals have got work to do. We've already talked about SpaceX, but looking at Apple, that's the 60-minute chart. We are below the cloud. There is a theory that quite a lot of these tech stocks have been robbed in favor of SpaceX, but we are seeing Apple not yet near a new high. Amazon, waiting to see if we can activate that upside target. We've got downside targets, so we are short-term bearish. Alphabet was my call for 2026. This, when I did the LSEG seminars, which I'm doing this Friday, we can see here we're waiting to see if we activate that upside target, so that's quite key as well. And Nvidia up 3.5%, although the short-term trend is still bearish and a mixed picture. Tesla has been rising in sympathy with SpaceX, but we need to really break above this 450 level convincingly to look to that upside target. So again, quite a mixed picture. Looking at the Dow 30, Boeing was the best performer yesterday. Still a very neutral looking chart. We saw Amex up 3%. Financials have been strong. Amex has activated a new upside target, so that's good news. And we look at Nvidia, we're also seeing you've got an upside target there, although we talked about the mixed picture. Caterpillar breaking to a new high, upside target looking very strong. Weekly chart, look at those targets. Train tracks looking very, very strong. Just train tracks, follow the train tracks. And the 60-minute chart is waiting for a breakout, but we do have this big upside target there as well. So that is a strong looking stock. Goldman Sachs, we're seeing also strong, hitting the target there. Go to the 60-minute chart, bit more of a mixed picture. Need to break 1100, but that is looking strong. And look at that, the weekly chart, long-term target given there as well. Walmart has been a strong performer of late, but just struggling to break that 135 level. And if we look at the 60-minute chart, we can see we're coming back. But the interesting thing was that Walmart was breaking to new highs at the start of the year and has struggled since. Cisco has been another very strong performer. Big upside targets. That break out of that range was quite key. The upside target on the weekly was beaten, but now we've got a bit of a mixed picture there as well. So just highlights. And then Chevron, I find it absolutely fascinating that Chevron had such a big rise. The Middle East crisis hit in February. It went a bit higher, but then throughout most of the Middle East crisis, it's lower, and that we are actually below the levels where the crisis started, even though the oil price is higher. So it just shows you can't ignore the charts, and you have to analyze each chart on its own merits. A quick look at the Nasdaq. We had SpaceX at the top there. Western Digital were very strong yesterday. Look at those targets really on the daily chart, very strong indeed. Micron coming back into play. Another upside target there for Micron. So really seeing chips, it's just not stopping really. Microchip. So really do keep an eye on these charts. Software has been the laggards in the Nasdaq, and if we look at the software side of things, we can see it's really showing through. Thomson Reuters, that's a really bearish looking chart, and we've seen Baker Hughes that have been strong lately, but a whole series of new downside targets kicking in there. That will show up on the 60-minute chart. Look at that. That's really quite key. So it just shows you've got to look through these targets and for the data. So quite a big performance. The FTSE we saw yesterday, Endeavour Mining is looking stronger there, but downside target given and met, and so not so bullish. Fresnel, again, we've got this bearish pattern here, double top pattern there on Fresnel, and Antofagasta is a better looking chart with potential to break new highs with upside targets. Polar Capital has been another one with a very strong upside target. Informa, not so good, below the cloud, just trying to break. And then we can look to the upside. To the downside, we've got Shell and BP being hit, as you might expect. BT lower, BP lower as well. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. Bye for now.